Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Today I'm bringing you something that I hope you guys will enjoy. As many of you'll know, on this channel I've focused a lot on Blade and Drain Gang in general, and I've always fancied talking a bit more about the songs that Blade's created that have never featured on a feature-length project. I wanted to do this because not only does it give me of course an excuse to talk more about Blade's songs, but also because at the end of the day my channel is basically all about hopefully exposing you guys to music that you'll enjoy. And if you guys enjoy Blade's music but have only focused on his projects, then you might be missing out on some fantastic songs, some of which basically surpass stuff that he's even released on feature-length projects. And so this is what we're going to be doing today. Here I've created a tier list of all of the Blade songs that have never featured on a full-length project. And we've got a bit of a tier list going here, and yeah, I'm basically going to be ranking all 80 plus songs, and hopefully, of course it's my opinion, but hopefully you guys will take apart the songs that I feel are particular songs that are worthwhile and enjoy them, you know. And of course, if you're a big fan of Blade, you might just enjoy following along this video and just, you know, seeing if you agree or disagree with my opinions and see what you think on the songs that I'm going to talk about. So that's basically it. Yeah, I'm going to be touching first on, you can skip this introduction because I'll put some timelines. First thing I want to quickly put out there is the fact that I haven't focused on all of Blade's singles in general. In fact, I've basically filtered out a certain couple of songs, and this is what I've done basically. First off, I've omitted songs that Blade has created going under a different pseudonym. For example, some of you might be aware that Blade was originally called Ken Burns and released a couple of songs way back in 2011. I'm not counting them because Blade himself doesn't actually consider that Ken Burns exists. He's even denied in an interview that that's even him, which is a load of bollocks. But even then though, I'll still respect that that is basically him doing something that isn't related to Blade. And on top of that, there's also Evil Blade, which is what I believe is Blade himself producing some songs. However, they're not at all hip-hop focused, they're actually kind of dark ambient electronic songs that again I don't feel relate to Blade in general as the artist, so I'll be omitting them, but I'm putting that out there just so you're aware, and you can of course check them out yourself if you want to. On top of that, you'll also notice that the singles here that are missing that actually appeared on feature-length projects. That is because, like I say, my aim here is to talk about songs that you guys might have missed out because they weren't on feature-length projects. So there's a load of songs that, of course, that were singles that are huge hits by Blade that aren't focused on here. So yeah, again, just to explain why there are singles omitted. Now, originally on top of this, I was also going to omit songs that were on EPs. For example, you'll notice that there's a few EPs, technically some singles here, that I've actually included. Originally when I made this list, I did not include, I excluded 3 EPs. That's the Exile EP, the Summer in Silver City EP, I believe it's called, and an EP which was basically created for Spotify only. And the reason is because not only do these songs, you know, kind of basically exist by themselves, not on feature-length projects, so again have a high chance of being missed out. But at the same time, yeah, I think, for example, that EP that was released for Spotify only, that actually was created months after the majority, in fact all of the songs were already released as singles. So basically that EP is just 4 singles that were released, even like up to a year before that EP came out. And as well as that, the 2 other EPs I just discussed there are just 2 songs. So 2 songs each, and it's basically, you know, up to interpretation of these even classify as EPs, especially the Exile EP, which I've went on year 0001, which does say what, you know, certain projects classify as, and it doesn't exist on there. So I don't know. Apple Music and other streaming services classifies it as a single, but Rate Your Music counts it as an EP, but that's just different opinions, and that's not coming from the source of the person who created it, so I'm just including it because, like I say, there's a chance that you guys might have missed these songs out, and without spoiling it too much, I think these songs are a particularly worthwhile because I really enjoy them. The last thing I'm going to be saying before kickstarting this video is that there is a possibility I could make a sequel to this video. That is because there is also a handful of songs that aren't included on here. For example, songs that Bladee featured on but is basically another artist's song, and there's also quite a few songs that were released unofficially by Bladee, basically leaks and stuff, some of which are very, very interesting, and I could again make a tier list just for them. So if you guys enjoy this video and you would like to see that, then, you know, please let us know. And before we kick it off as well, I'll just say I will put the link to this tier list that I've made in the description, so if you guys want to create your own rankings or even want to use this tier list for your own video, then you go ahead. Hope you've noticed the listings where they're all named after particular Bladee songs. I hope you caught that. Yeah, just being a bit of a geek there, I know, but whatever. Okay, everybody. Anyways, here we go. This is my ranking of Bladee singles. I'm going to go back to 2012 with the song Oxygen. I'm going to put this as a solid B tier. Despite this being basically the first song that Bladee released, it sounds like Bladee. He actually nails his unique sound immediately, and this is of course thanks to White Armor as well, who makes this really cacophonous instrumental, and Bladee does really well on here, and when he says "so cold," the song really does feel cold. It's a very great start to his career. It's a very solid number. And then straight after that, we're going to have the first feature from Tyboy Digital with this song here, Smoke in My Eyes. Very underrated. I'm putting it in the A tier. I love this song because it is just such a surreal song. And I will say too that you'll find in these earlier Bladee singles, Bladee really went for the sort of fantastical, very just dreamlike sort of atmosphere with the lyrics, and I think White Armor nails it with that because it's a very sporadic and just very, I'll say, unique beat that he's created on here. And yeah, it won't appeal to many people, I will say that, because it is a strange song, but I love this one. Then we're going to get probably maybe Blade's technically first sort of hit with the song Car Wash. I'm going to put this right next to Smoke in My Eyes and say it's an A tier as well. Again, I think Bladee is on a very different vibe with this song, and I feel also that not only is it a great instrumental too, but this is the first time we'll really get a good hook from Bladee. And the vocal blemishes in here, you know, I'm going to be hypocritical because later on I'm going to actually deduct points from certain singles because of the vocal blemishes, but it really adds to it here. It's hard to describe, especially when it's something like a vocal blemish, which you'd assume is a negative trait. But now this is actually a really solid number, and I think is actually a bit of an earworm too. So I recommend that one quite a lot if you haven't checked out Car Wash. Then we've got another song that Bladee done with Tyboy, I'm Lost. I'm going to put this a bit above Oxygen, a good B. We've got basically Tyboy doing the hook on here, and it's very, very hypnotic, and both of them do really well on here. And when he's saying I'm lost throughout the whole song, you know that could mean many things, but the song itself really has this sort of atmosphere to it where you do kind of feel a bit phased out, and because of that it's a very druggy and trippy track, and song that'll definitely suck you in. So that's a great song there. And then we get a song which many people considered Blade's first classic. This is Bleach featuring Echo 2K. I'm going to put this again in the B tier. That's still a very good score, of course, It's just one of those ones where, even though I do like it, I've never seen the high acclaim that Dragonfly fans give this song. It's got a very disjointed beat, and when I'd say that, that could mean a good or a bad thing, but it just never sat well with me, this song. I don't know why, with the sort of weird vocal manipulations that's going on in the instrumentals. I think what Echo and Blade do here are really cool, and it is a good song overall. Just like I say, I've never seen the huge hype that this song does gather from people. However, we're gonna go to a song which again I still feel is talking about underrated or underappreciated Blade songs. This is another one with Thai Boy, and this is a song called I Will Make You Bleed. I'm gonna put this higher than these two tracks. This is an amazing song, and the production on it is so cool. It's really futuristic and clean sounding, and the sort of melody that plays at the very start of the song and kind of comes back midway is really, really catchy and will stay in your head. The sound of the drums on here too is very unique too. It's kind of got a tribal sound to it too, but yeah, there's all of the sort of interesting echoes that go out throughout this song from Thai Boy especially. Again, this sort of hypnotic state that you could get put in by listening to songs like this just makes this song really, really unique and is a very, very good track overall. And now we're going to a song which is going to be my first S rank. This is a track which will put off a lot of people who aren't used to old sounding Blade, and believe me, this is a grower, this song. What I'm talking about here is a track that will definitely catch you by surprise. The song's called My Magic Is Strong, and you might not even be able to follow the lyrics because they're quite unintelligible unless you listen to it a lot of times. And the whole sound of it is just really chaotic, and it just feels like everything's getting swallowed by itself. And it's just such a very, very strange song. But you've got to give props to Blade here because it's just so unique, and thinking of the year it was released too, people even now, if that came out, would be kind of taken aback. But for it to be released basically 10 years ago is amazing. And it's, again, when I'm talking about hypnotic songs, this nails it by far in terms of all the other tracks I've talked about. It's a seminal song. I really, really recommend it. And then we've got this one here called Bladeecity. This, I believe, features Young Lean. And you know what? I'm going to put it even higher than that one. I feel this song is a masterpiece. And if you're at all into the older sound and cloud rap, then Bladeecity is an absolutely essential listen. It's actually got one of my favourite verses that Young Lean's ever done, especially from the sort of earlier period. And I don't know what it is about some Blade songs, but when you hear it, it just hits you emotionally sometimes. And some songs might do that and some might not, but this song for me always hits a certain spot with me. I always find it a very emotional track. And the whole package of it, I think it's a very epic sounding song. And I think, like I say, what both Blade and Young Lean do on here is awesome. I think this is a classic. Looking into it, a lot of people, I mean, it just doesn't seem to ring the same way that it does for me. It doesn't seem to be classed as a classic, but I feel this is one of Blade's best songs, period, in my opinion. Now we're going to get to the first Blade song that features Black Cray, aka Sick Boy Rari. Never really liked the song, to be honest. I'm going to put it in C tier. I don't know, I just feel like the instrumental's just really unimpressive, and I really don't like the vocal delivery that Black Cray does on here. I just personally think the highlight is Blade himself. He saves the song, and don't think that I'm a Blade stan by saying this, because if you stick around there'll be songs that I feel that Blade is sometimes the worst trait of a track when he's a feature or someone else features on his songs. just never really liked this song, to be honest. When it comes to Diamonds, you know, there's another track called Diamonds that features Young Lean and Thai Boy. Way better track. So, never been a big fan of this one, to be honest. Ghost Hands is the next track, and I'm going to put this about here. This is a really interesting one. This is almost sort of ambient pop slash hip hop, technically. And this just kind of, again, just shows Blade willing to experiment. And it's interesting because you could say that when it comes to someone's early career, a lot of early songs that someone does might just be classified as them, you know, trying to find their footing and stuff, but it's not really, because this sort of style will be revisited by Blade many times within the next 10 years. It just so happens to be the first track that is the sort of ambient pop leaning, and it does really well. I think it's a really good song, and I recommend it quite a lot, especially if you like the sort of more tranquil sounding Blade tracks. Next track is Ice Floors featuring Xavier Wolf. Now, I'm not the biggest Xavier Wolf fan, to be honest. However, saying that, this is going to be right at the top, even surpassing Bladeecity. Again, it's one of those songs that I feel, just when I listen to it, it just again hits a real interesting note for me. And the whole package, the instrumental, again I would describe as epic. It kicks off with Xavier Wolf, who, you know, is kind of, you know, doing the sort of braggadocious kind of thing. But his delivery, interestingly, matches the strange instrumental. And one of Blade's best moments is when he builds up to his feature on this song, because the instrumental kind of quietens down a bit and Blade's vocals slowly come in and delivers, you know, just this interesting flow, while Xavier's still kind of putting in these, you know, lyrics here and there. And then the beat drops and the instrumental kind of develops even more, and it's such a epic song. And again, I don't see this song appearing on many people's favourite Blade songs, but I hope I can kind of do it justice by saying it's literally one of my favourite Blade songs ever. Awesome track, this. Then we've got the song Crushed. I'm going to put it down in the C tier, not as low for me for Diamonds, but again, this kind of could have been a solid number, but I really feel that what Blade's doing here is kind of just, it's not the best performance he's ever done, and it's got this really weird high-pitched sort of filter on his vocals that go up throughout the whole song, and I suppose you could describe them as crushed, but it just ruins the song for me. It just gives this amateurish sound to it, and not in the sort of charming way that you might like from Blade. I've always liked Blade's instrumentals because they're not amateurish, they're very, like I say, big in scope, but the way his vocals are processed on here are just unappealing to me, to be honest. He's just got kind of a very repetitive flow on here, and I just don't think it's a highlight, to be honest. However, we're going to go back into really good territories with the song Buildings. I'll put it about here. This, I believe, features both Young Lean and Thai Boy. I'll just say everyone does a cracking performance on here, and the instrumental on this is especially beautiful, so really, really recommend that. I think this is Beautiful. I'm going to check my notes. Yes, it is. This I'm going to also put right next to Buildings, slightly lower. This is a very underrated Blade song, and I kind of relate it to something like Smoke in My Eyes, where it's got this very disjointed rhythm to it, and is very, very unusual in its style. And especially the lyrics and the way that Blade flows over this disjointed instrumental Again, I think this is going to be one of the more polarizing Blade songs that you might try, but for me, it just works really well. Now, we've got the song Jewelry. I'm going to put this pretty low on the B tier. It's got a very interesting instrumental, I'll put it that way. And in terms of what Blade's doing on here, I mean, it's got a solid hook overall, but the instrumental, like I say, it's hard to describe, and I will say that it's never sat quite well with me, but for others, people that might enjoy it, I will say Blade himself does really well on this song. Okay, and then we've got Snowmen. This features Echo 2K and Xavier Wolf again. No, I'm not a fan of this one either. I'll probably put it about here. There's a lot of negatives and criticisms I can kind of give to this song. First of all, Xavier Wolf does the hook on here, and I don't like it. I find it quite irritating. Echo 2K on here is alright, but his feature's just way too short, and it's the same with Blade too. And it's just, yeah, just not the best performances by all three, to be honest. So not a huge fan on here. But again, we'll go from a negative to a positive with this track here, Dragonfly. And I'm going to shoot that all the way up to here. Put it about there. S rank, definitely. This, for me, is just kind of a good encompass of Blade's sound, because this just takes his auto-tune and the sort of ambient leanings with the sort of ethereal sounds of cloud rap to another level on this tune. I believe it starts with a sample of the, well, obviously the English dub of an anime. I'm trying to remember again. What is the anime called? Serial Experiments Lane, that's it. Very cool anime as well, I will say that too. And the way it comes in, it almost just sort of blossoms, and it might actually be kind of overwhelming for some people, just because of how, you know, some people will go about auto-tune and try and disguise it and make it sound like the person is genuinely singing well, but Blade does the opposite. He just takes the auto-tune, just pushes it and stretches it, and makes his own sound that, again, will be polarizing to people. But all of the sort of weird laughing samples from Serial Experiments Lane and the production as well is, again, I'll just keep describing it as epic. And when I listen to this, I just kind of feel like the soundtrack to a dream where you're flying. It's a gorgeous number, this one. I really, really enjoy that one. Subaru is the next track. I really don't have that much to say about it. I'll put it in C tier. Decent instrumental, pretty solid hook. It's okay. Not one of my favourites, but it's alright. Blood Rain. This is an interesting one. This is another stylistic shift for Blade. This is him kind of going almost trance, which is very interesting. I'll put this in, I'm going to put it in a decent B tier, because even though it is really cool that he's doing sort of trance music, it's like kind of moving away from the sort of surprise that he's doing that. If you just tread it for what it is, it's like a decent trance instrumental. And what Blade does on here is pretty cool too. Overall, it's a really solid song, but I will say that there's another trance song that he done later on that is way better, in my opinion. I think this is Into Dust. Yes, it is. Into Dust is, I would say, about here. This is, to what many people consider, again, kind of like the song Car Wash. This is an instance of an early Blade song being regarded as a classic, and I'd agree. I'll keep it up there. This song is a feature from Adam Killer, who worked quite a bit with Blade from sort of 2014 to 2016. I'm going to put this in a sort of, yeah, about here overall. It's actually got a pretty good hook from Adam Killer. He's the guy who goes, damn, pretty much all the time. which might irritate you, but yeah, he provides a good hook here. The instrumental's really good. There's some weird, from what I remember, sort of popping from Blade in terms of, again, how his vocals are kind of put in here, which definitely doesn't add to it, I'll put it that way, but despite that blemish, it's actually still a good track. This is Reborn. I'm going to put this in A tier. Another awesome song, great instrumental and a great hook. The only thing that stops this from going in S tier, it's too short in my opinion. It's a shame. If this could have developed a bit more, maybe with another verse or something, then this would have shot up to S tier, but despite that, it's still a great track. Right, this one, I'm going to call it The Starz, with a Z. This is featuring Tyboy Digital. Not one of their best ones, to be honest. It's got like a decent instrumental, not a bad hook from Tyboy, but I've got to say the auto-tune on both Tyboy and Blade here are shaky. They are not good. Definitely some of the worst produced vocals from both of them, and it really hinders the quality of the song, sadly. I'm not sure how to pronounce this next one. It's spelled Xonu, so it might be Xonu. I think it's supposed to be X on you because the hook is flex on you, so I'll assume it's X on you actually. This features Tyboy Digital and Young Lean, and I'm gonna put this about here. It's a solid track, a really catchy hook from Tyboy Digital, pretty good performance from Young Lean. Blade's pretty good on here, and instrumental is also pretty good too. So yeah, definitely worth checking out if you want to hear the boys kind of collabing together and making a good song. Okay, so this is Hottest in the City. I don't really know what to feel about this song, to be honest. I'm gonna put it like probably the lowest here. It's like the instrumental is pretty, it's alright, but I don't know, I find it kind of corny, because I suppose it's one of the unique instances of Blade being on a song where it kind of has a vocal sample that you would like typically get out of like your just typical hip-hop song, but it's kind of corny, man. As well as that, it has a boatload of features on here. This is a DJ Ken production, who, when I've heard different songs by him, I definitely don't think this is one of his best productions that he's done. And there's some weird features on here, for example, like one, there's, for example, Black Cray, who's pretty good on here. Blade sticks out like a sore thumb. He is really loud in the mix, and it's okay, but I just don't think he suits an instrumental like this. But what makes it even more interesting is the fact that there's a couple of Glow Gang members on here, as well as Capo, rest in peace too, who's, he suits this song, I would say, but it is a weird one, thinking that Glow Gang worked with Drain Gang at one point. And I really don't mean any offense to this other rapper called Cedar, who I've never tried any of his stuff before, but I think he's like the last feature on here, and it's really no. So I'll keep it like that, okay. Right, next one is 7-Eleven. And this is, I believe, the first track off the mixtape EP, that was released for Spotify only. And this is when Blade kind of went into doing more drill sounding songs, which I find is kind of interesting when he literally had this Hottest in the City song, which obviously features members of a group who basically created drill music in general. But obviously Blade does it in his own signature melancholic mood, and I will give it a high B. Probably, yeah, I'll give it like as high of a B as I can give, really. Great hook on here, instrumentals really, really something, and yeah, it's good. Another good song is this one called Show You. I'm going to put it a bit low, but still in B. really, like, extremely cold sounding instrumental on here. It almost literally sounds like the sort of wind blowing throughout this track. So because of that in itself, I've got to give props to this song. It's a very, very atmospheric song here. And speaking of being sort of cold and gloomy, we've got this track here called 4 AM, which again I'm going to put in the B tier. This really does sound like you've just been up all night and you're still awake at 4 AM. In fact, it sounds like it's 4 AM and you've been up for the past 3 days. That's just not only from the instrumental but from the lyrics and of course Blade's delivery too on here. Very tired sounding, and again you might think, oh, so it's like boring. No, it's got a really cool, like I say, sort of atmosphere to it, and deserves a B at the least, you know. Tokyo Drift. This features both Young Lean and a bunch of other rappers who I'll be honest, I've never heard of before, but not only are they Japanese, but they actually rap in Japanese too. Maybe that's why it's called Tokyo Drift. This song's fun. I'm gonna put this in a solid B. I think the song's really fun. It's kind of stupid. It's quite gaudy in its sound, but it's of its time. The instrumental's actually quite cool. Everyone does a good feature, and Blade on here, because it's basically like a posse cut in a way, it's like drill as well. He snaps on here. He really goes all out. For example, you know, when I was talking about this song here, like Hottest in the City, he kind of does this sort of auto-tune, sort of crooning over it, and it just doesn't suit it, but he really pops off in this track. So yeah, Tokyo Drift is actually really, really cool. Oh man. Now, I don't know if you remember before I was giving props to the song Blood Rain, saying that it was pretty good trance, but there is something that was done later on that was also trance inspired that was better. I'm talking about Friday Night here. I'm gonna have to put this at the top, the very, very tippy top. I don't know if it'll stay there going through the rest of the list, but this is again one of my favourite Blade songs. This features Black Cray, and his feature on here, I see people talk about it and they say it's Blade featuring Santa Claus because his voice is so deep and it's so... People probably think it's goofy, but I think it's so cool. And whilst I think the attempt at trance with the sound on Blood Rain was cool, this nails it, and it actually not only has a proper authentic trance sound to it, but it sort of blends that and atmospheric cloud rap seamlessly, and it's such a fantastic song. And Blade as well on here is awesome. He provides a really, really cool hook on here, and very short verse, but it just suits the song really well. And it's an awe-inspiring track. Awesome song. Highly recommend it. We definitely calmed down things a lot with the track like a Virgin. I'm going to put this sort of like low B. It's like a very soothing track, I would describe overall. It's pretty good, but just, you know, not that impressive overall. It's not a bad track. It's, like I say, kind of a common song. But I think in terms of songs that Blade's done in this sort of style, he's definitely done better. Right, this I think is going to be quite a controversial take, because we're going to be putting Rain Check also in the B tier. Now, of course, I realise a lot of people love this song. I think the instrumental's fantastic. It's produced by Rip Squad, who I've always said are my personal favourite producers who have worked with Blade. And I think this is the first time they worked with him. And their production starts out with a bang because it's a great instrumental. I think it's just Blade, where like the sort of melodies that he comes up with on this song is good, but it just repeats throughout the whole song, and I just feel like if he changed it up a bit, it would have sort of put the song, you know, even higher on my list. But like I say, because of the very repetitive melody that he uses throughout the entire track, it definitely knocks it down a bit of a peg, but I'm not gonna put the song down in terms of its instrumental. I think it's awesome. Right, then we've got Beezer. I think this features Thai Boy and Echo. I'm gonna put this in a really good A tier, this one. Awesome features from all of them, and they've got kind of this sort of subdued quality to their inflections on their vocal deliveries, and it just kind of gives it this really interesting and authentic sort of style to it, and the instrumental is epic. Very, very good track there. Here is the next track, which is one of the singles that was eventually put together on the Rip Blade EP, Psycho. This is again a very drill-inspired song. I'm going to put this I'll put it in sort of like a mid-ish sort of B. This features a damn again, and I think both of them are great. I think the main hook that Bladee comes up with here is really cool, and as the title kind of suggests, it is kind of a psychotic track, especially again with the lyricism, and again just kind of shows how Blade's lyricism has changed quite a bit from saying the things that he does on here to eventually what he kind of does nowadays. It's a very interesting trajectory. But yeah, that's a really solid song. And this is actually coming up next, is going to be the next one that was also, I believe, on the Rip Blade EP. I'm going to put this a bit higher actually. This is Butterfly with Thai Boy Digital. And both of them snap on here. The instrumental again, really cool, really cold sounding on here. Bladee really suited drill, and it's a shame that his sort of sound with drill kind of only lasted for a very brief period of time, because well, I mean, saying that, actually Thai Boy kind of did and is experiencing some sort of rehash with drill with some of his songs, and to be fair, I suppose Spider did have some sort of drill sounds to it, but not in the same sort of vein as that was done around 2015 to 16. But yeah, that's a great song. Next we've got Kiss of Death. This is one of the songs that features Uli K, or Yuli K, who was originally going to do a full project, I believe, with Bladee around this time. I'm going to put this in the lower B tier. I think I really like the instrumental in here, and I think Yuli or Uli K does a good feature on here, but I think what lets it down is actually Bladee. And it's the sort of redundant melody, and I've got to say this because if you guys listen to this song and then listen to the song Still in Search for Sunshine that you're done with Thai Boy, it's basically just the same melody, it's just rehashing. And there's actually quite a few songs that have this sort of similar melody that you'll do, and it's hard to put that down because there's some rappers who basically have the same sort of flow that they'll use throughout their entire career. But when it's someone like Bladee who kind of, you know, is known for his melodies, it's kind of disappointing when he just rehashes the same one. So yeah, I think he lets it down a bit on here, but despite that, it's still a decent song overall, very decent. And then we've got Creepin featuring Young Lean. I think this is another DJ Ken production. I'm going to put this on the higher end of C. There's really nothing bad with this song. It's a really cold and cool sounding sort of drill song. It is something that I could imagine the Glory Boys being on. And Young Lean, again, he does a solid performance on here. It's just one of those things where I can give props to everything, but it's just not that good to put it any higher, you know. Everything's solid, but it's just not a song that I return to a lot. Next up is a song called Never Coming Down. This features a rapper called Young God, who is mostly famous for making comedy rap, basically novelty songs, but later started featuring a lot more prominently with Cartier God. And this is kind of a more foray into being a bit more serious. And it's sort of a passable cloud rap song. Young God himself has a sort of passable hook that he does. The production is pretty good, quite subdued sounding. And the verse that Young God has on here is alright too, but it just comes off very amateurish. The performance that he has on here just, it doesn't really sound that he's very confident with what he's doing. I think Blade definitely saves it in my opinion. Has a lot more of a prominent and just more interesting feature. I'm afraid it's not going to save this track though, sadly. It's definitely overall quite a mediocre number. I'm afraid, speaking of mediocre, we're going to talk about another mediocre song. This is Made of Glass. This features Thai Boy. This is like a dancehall song, and I'm afraid again it's going to kind of go on the lower end here. The actual production's not too bad, but it's overlaid with all these like air horns, and I don't know, it just kind of feels like a cheap way of trying to make it a bit more unique instead of just being a more chilled out dancehall number. And it really doesn't sound like Toy Boy or Blade really thought of a way to cohesively find a way to flow on this beat very well. It really is like the kind of walking on a tightrope, and occasionally they stumble when it comes to actually flowing on the beat on this song. So again, not one of my favourites. I'm afraid again I don't really have much to say about this next track. This is Lie to Me. I kind of feel it goes alongside Creepin, and this is another Thai Boy song where everything is fine, especially the production, which has some interesting sort of additions to it, I'll put it that way. Yeah, everything's fine, but nothing particularly stands out as of amazing quality. It's literally just fine, it's alright. No major downfalls or anything to it, but certainly nothing that, to me at least, is worthwhile to return to this track numerous times, especially when you've got a plethora of other much more interesting tracks that Blade's done. Next up is going to be another track off the Rip Blade Project EP. This is MJ featuring Young Lean. Now, if you're going to name your song after probably one of the most prolific singers of all time, you better have a song that lives up to the name. And this song overall pretty much does that. I'm going to put it in a high sort of B rating. I think the instrumental is pretty epic sounding. It's still drill, but it's definitely got more of a atmospheric sound to it, a lot more than compared to the other songs on the EP. And I think particularly I've got to give credits to Young Lean. I think he outshines Blade on here and really has a great, impactful sort of, you know, feature on here. And basically both of them are saying how they feel like they are Michael Jackson. I don't know how much you'd want to feel like that now, but I think the meaning is sort of when he was in his prime sort of thing, you know, the sort of popularity and not much anything else that comes with it, or the dead part or stuff like that, you know. Sadly don't have much to say about FaceTime, this track here. For me, this is one of the weakest probably ever Rip Squad beats that I've heard. It's just passable, not really something that I return to. Again, same for Blade. Kind of just by the numbers for me. It's fine. It's an alright track. This one is 50s in my sock, so I don't give a fuck, or 50s in my sock, IDJAF. Another collab between Blade and Young Lean, and I think this is the last track on that Rip Blade EP. I'm going to put this a tether above the one that they had previously with MJ. It's again a very punchy sort of track, quite a fun one as well, but I think it shines a bit brighter with an even better hook from Blade on here. So another great track. Both of them do really well on this song. Now this one here, Who's Going to Find Me Tonight, is really interesting. I'm going to put it in, again, sort of middle of the B sort of era. And the reason why I put it there is, and why I say it's interesting, is because I kind of classify this as a sequel to the song Missing Person, which a lot of people might be aware of. It's a great track off his classic, pretty much now, album that he came out with probably 2016, I think, called Ever Since. And Missing Person is him talking about himself, actually. It's got this huge theme about self-isolation and all sorts. Very, very somber track, and the reason why I say this is as a sequel is because it's got very similar, well, themes about it. The thematic elements of, again, isolation, self-hatred. It comes up a lot on here, and it kind of fits with that sort of same, if not even a moodier vibe. So if anyone likes that song, then check out this one, what I classify as a sort of sequel to Missing Person. Next up is Man in the Mirror, another MJ theme song. Sadly, compared to the MJ song that we talked about before, isn't as good. It's hard to put this in the C tier because the production by Young Sherman is frankly beautiful. Very wintry and kind of gorgeous sounding. And Blade on here is pretty good too. Doesn't have the biggest verse, but you know, his contribution's still appreciated. But this is mostly a Chopo track, who I've never really tried much, and kind of interested to see if his performance here is what he usually does on his own material, because it's very whacked out. It's sort of, I'd say, like gurgled. It really sounds like he's taken, I was going to say some things, so it was more like a lot of things before recording. And again, maybe you could argue that adds to the woozy atmosphere, but to me it kind of ruins the sort of the vibe, to be honest. If there does exist out there an instrumental of just that track, or maybe he's just played it himself, then I think I would appreciate that song a lot more. Not trying to sound nasty to Chopo there, but yeah, I feel personally he does kind of ruin the song a bit. Right, next one is called Dead Inside, Dark Outside, I believe. This also, I think, features Echo 2K. And put this sort of middle to lower B tier. This features productions from Filthy, of all people. Great instrumental, very sort of peppy, which again you don't really get around this sort of time with Blade and Echo 2K, but I'm afraid what you do seem to get around this sort of era is a lot of repeated melodic ideas in terms of what they do for their vocals, and I'm afraid Echo 2K in particular does that quite a lot on here. Blade's fine on here, in fact the hook overall is pretty good too, but again it's this sort of repeats and rehashes of already used ideas mix, like I say, the sort of vocals quite redundant if you listen to a lot of their stuff around this point in time, but still not a bad track by any means. What we'd definitely need to talk a bit more about is this track here, Doorman, which is going to go up to the A tier. Well, originally I believe this was supposed to be a single with Doorman, It Suxx here, and Plastic Surgery being like the lead single, the A side, so to say. But this came out first, and all three of these are a holy trinity, I would say, of classic Blade stuff, and this deserved to be sitting nearer the top. Doorman, it's interesting because he's got a very, very subdued voice on here, Blade. It's very deep and kind of sinister sounding, and like I say, it sort of feels like you're creeping through like a house that you shouldn't be in. And it kind of does have this very unique atmosphere, but even despite that, it's still very catchy. Great instrumental, so that deserves to be sitting up there. Same with It Suxx. It's not going in there. It Suxx is also going to sit pretty close to Doorman. This isn't even more, I'd say, up tempo. It's not. The actual instrumental's up tempo, but the lyrics aren't at all. This is sort of like Blade accepting about how life sucks, I suppose, and it's just like, yep, that's the way it is, deal with it. Quite defeatist, I suppose, something that I think he definitely changed his opinions on in more recent times. But despite that, I still think that, well, you know what, the song and its lyrical content doesn't mean that it has to reflect the artist throughout their whole time. So for this particular song, if you're feeling pretty crappy, then I think go to this song, definitely. It's still a banger. This is Faceless with Cane Groceries. This is going to sit pretty low on C tier. The only sort of highlight I can give is the instrumental's pretty good. It's got a nice little piano that's going throughout it. But I seriously think that Cane Groceries and Bladee are in a competition to see who sounds the most bored on the track. I mean, Bladee, I don't even think has a verse, he just handles the hook. But they seriously just sound totally bored out of the mind. And because of that, it sits at the bottom. What's not going to sit at the bottom is this track here, called Destroy Me. This is going to go, up it goes, S tier. This for me, alongside Bladeecity, and I suppose Ice Floors as well, is one of the most underrated songs Bladee has released, and it's one of my personal favourites. This features Rip Squad on the beat, who makes one of my favourite instrumentals that he's ever done, and Bladee on here, honestly, has a hook that's so good. This, honestly, I am so surprised it's so underrated, because not only is it one of his most underrated songs, but I seriously think that in the right hands, this could have been a hit just in general. It's such a catchy chorus. It's got this huge epic anthemic quality to it, and it basically is kind of like a emo rap song. But damn, man, if this Nebbies came out a couple of years later when the likes of, you know, Lil Peep was big, you know, I could rattle off a lot of people from around, you know, 2018, 19 onwards. I seriously think this could have been a huge hit, but sadly it's really slept on. So when I'm talking about, you know, trying to make you guys aware of songs that might go under the radar, this is a prime example. Please check out Destroy Me. It's absolutely amazing. Similarly amazing, in my opinion, is Plastic Surgery. I'm going to put this, I think it's going to have to go in S tier as well. This again, I would consider a Drain Gang classic. This features Echo 2K, and they work so well off each other. And just everything from the sort of chipmunked sample vocals to Blade's main hook, to Echo's sort of verse as well, and the way, especially Echo 2K is the highlight I believe on here, the way he flows on this instrumental is I would just say gorgeous. It's really, really a beautiful track, and yeah, a very, very big highlight. And you know what, we're on a winning streak here. I'm going to put it at the very high end of A tier. We've got Gotham City, which is a song with both Bladee obviously, but also Young Lean. Speaking of anthemic qualities, this song has it too. I think both of them again just play off each other fantastically. You get these times where they just kind of have the verse and one of them handles the hook and that's it, but they never kind of, you know, splice within each other and, you know, trade verses or melodies with each other, you know, and really make it feel like a proper collaboration, and this really does. This is an awesome track, very, very catchy, and not repetitive. Again, it's not just focusing on one melody, it's got a lot of layers to this track, which makes repeated listens a joy. So again, a huge highlight there. Next up is I Want It All, which I believe might be the first collaboration between both Bladee and Cartier God. Whenever Bladee is with Cartier God, you know you're in for something that's in a total unique lane. I'm going to put it pretty high on B, actually. Now this is like everything that I believe Cartier God's ever done, really. This is going to be a very polarizing song, mainly due to the way that the mixing is handled. It is very, I suppose you could say, esoteric. It's just, in a way, something that would appeal to some, but might really not appeal to others. Now, I would say, genuinely, the instrumental's quite pretty, and Bladee is really good on here too. Cartier God, I think he sells the song really well. He's got these really from what I remember, like really breathy vocals, and gives this a very, like I say, sort of otherworldly atmosphere. And yeah, definitely consider trying this. I think they've done better, but I still think this is a really solid song, albeit be warned, especially, like I say, the way that the mixing's handled, you might not sit with this all too well. This song is Insect. This, for me, is going to go up to S tier. Insect actually utilises a very heavy sample, and I believe it's a sample from a band called Silverstein. And the sample means that it's actually played on not only a sort of trap beat, but predominantly using acoustic guitars, actually. And with that makes it not only one of the most unique sounding Blade songs, but through the lyrics, with him saying that he's an insect, you know, kind of like Metamorphosis from the famous Franz Kafka novel. One of the most saddest songs, and definitely one of the most defeatist tracks he's ever done. But I really think the hook on here is awesome, and just the way that he has the lyrics, like life, I've lost interest, now I'm an insect, flowers in winter, and then something about Windex. Yeah, only Blade can kind of put those weird lyrics together, which to most people would just think it's a load of random gibberish, but he just sells it. And yeah, I really think this is, once again, an underrated song by Blade, and one of my favourites. Next up is 18. This is production from Katie Cutthroat, who Blade hasn't worked with all too much, which is a shame, because when you want nocturnal sound in Blade, then he's really done well, Katie Cutthroat here. I'm going to put this middle B. The only real issue I've got with it is this has a, I don't know if you would classify it as a build-up, but Blade has this sort of spoken word intro, and I think it just goes on a bit too much, especially with the length of the track overall. But despite that, another solid hook, and like I say, a really cool nocturnal sound and instrumental, so it's a solid track, definitely. Here is a song that I'm going to put right up here. This one is an extremely special song for me. It's obviously, with us putting it up there, it's one of my favourite Blade songs. This is Wallet Won't Fold, and alongside Insect, this is one of the rare instances where Blade is over an instrumental that has acoustic guitars. Now, despite us probably putting this in S tier, this is somehow even better in my opinion, and I think that's through these very melancholic sort of organs that are used alongside the sped up acoustic guitars and the really cool sort of trap beats that's put on here as well. And Blade has a really quick delivery on here too, and it's not messy at all by saying that. It's really intricate, actually, the way he flows on here. You know, like I say, sometimes you might think, oh, he's just kind of rambling and ranting on, but like, honestly, see if you can follow the way he flows on this song. It's actually really well done, and it's also, again, one of the most catchiest ones. For me, speaking of earworms, this is a real highlight for me, and again, one of my favourite Blade songs ever. We're gonna have King Groceries come back with the song Wands. We obviously last saw him when he was kind of hanging around here, but don't worry, he's gonna go around here. Basically, everything that I said as a negative beforehand is fixed on this song Wands. Better production, they actually sound more energetic on here, both him and Blade. A lot more punchier, especially through the length of time it's on, and it's, like I say, a way more interesting song. The hook actually here is actually really catchy, which is also done by Kane, so a much bigger improvement on here, definitely. Next up, I'm going to put this track here, which is called I'm Not Tired, pretty high up. This features production from Worsum, who Blade is going to work quite a bit with when Worsum eventually releases his Blue Summer project quite a few years later. But even back here, Worsum was clearly a great producer. Even though this instrumental is pretty low key overall, it's constantly developing, and what makes it great too is Blade joins the instrumental and constantly changes his flows and tempos throughout the track too. Definitely a really underrated song, and is a real big grower, I say too. Sit with the song with quite a few listens, and you might find that you like it more and more with each listen, definitely. Then we get the track FML, which some of you might know what that stands for. I'm going to put this pretty... yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good track. I mean, if you're talking about stuff that's like depressing and compare it with Blade, this has got to be really down there. This is really on the nose. We're not getting any sort of, you know, oh, it could be interpreted this way. No, this song is explicitly about wanting to commit suicide, wanting to shoot up, do all sorts of drugs and many other fun things, which you might find very troublesome and quite worrying, but then you look at the single cover and it's Mickey Mouse shooting up, and then you kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be taking this as seriously as I might have thought. But pretty good track, very moody, but very interesting. This one I think is Cover Up. This is, speaking of interesting, this is going to have to go pretty high on B actually. We're going to kind of cover a new ground here with Blade, and this is very... it's almost like a scary song by Blade. It starts off kind of what you'd expect, but it gets much more louder and louder until eventually, and especially in the second verse that Blade does, or almost kind of like the hook, he sounds really pissed off on here. Not so much that he's angry at anyone in particular, but it's almost like the sort of hedonistic, look at me now, F all these doubters sort of thing. And because of that, I doubt we're going to get another song like that from Blade again. So because of that, definitely check out this song if you want to hear Blade doing something a lot more shocking, I suppose you could describe it. This one, this is pretty much like a personal favourite of mine. This is Sesame Street. I'm going to put this pretty high as well. Yeah, there's, you know, who else could use a sample of literally Sesame Street and make reference to it other than good old Blade? It's actually a really good song, pretty, again, depressing, good cloud rap song overall, and the added quirkiness of obviously what it's referenced to definitely puts it up a tier as well. This is a really good track actually, very, very catchy. And now everyone, we're going to touch upon these two EPs, mini projects, mini albums, everyone's got a different name for it. First off, we're going to cover these ones here. These two come from something, a project I guess I'll say, called Sunset and Silver City. This first track of the two is I.E.E, which I believe, again going by the lyrics, is Insect Eat Everything. I'm going to put this pretty low on B. It's a solid track overall, but what makes a highlight is White Armor. He kills it on these handful of tracks that are about to come out. Especially with the bass, particularly on this song, it's like mountainous. It's huge. I would love to hear like a really crap stereo in a car playing this. It would absolutely destroy it. So pretty good song, but for me personally, Smile is the highlight of the two. Smile's gonna go pretty high up onto the A section. Despite being minimalistic in sound, it also uses these epic sounds too, and somehow puts the two together. And I feel, especially with the lyrical content and the very passionate delivery on here, makes Smile the better of the two in my opinion. This is a fab track. So now we're going to be talking about these two tracks here, these two both equally amazing tracks basically, off the Exile EP. You might catch me, not now obviously, but in some other video wearing a shirt. It's one of the two Drain Gang shirts. I've got the other one being the Exeter album cover with the Exile EP, whatever you want to call it, project on the front. It's because I adore both of these tracks. Now if I had to say a favourite, I would actually go with the first of the two tracks, Trial, which I'm going to put about here. When I was mentioning before about how White Armor uses minimalism in a very interesting way, it's particularly shown on this track here. where there's honestly parts on the song where it's just pretty much dead silent, and then it sort of flows back in. And you might find that really awkward, like, what, so it's not even finished? No, it definitely does have this really interesting vibe going on. And Blade, you know, this just shows he has talent, because not many rappers could flow over an instrumental like this, and Blade kills it. A real highlight for me is when he kind of does these group vocals singing "I Don't Make It Make Sense." Like, they're actually really cool sounding. He puts loads of falsettos and ad-libs on here, and just really, really cool song. Very, like, I would almost say it's like a sort of futuristic post-electronic song. It's really, really cool. And I did say I prefer the first of the two, but that doesn't mean that I don't like a Sentence. I'm still going to put it very high up. This song is like basically anxiety in a track. Like, Blade sounds really lost on here. Like, especially that lyric, "I don't even feel like me." Like, that's pretty hard going, that track and that lyric, you know. But again, gorgeous instrumental from White Armor. So these two tracks, just real highlights in Blade's discography, in my opinion. Another highlight is this one. This one is I Chose to Be This Way. I'm going to put this pretty high on A tier. Explosive instrumental on here. A really, really solid hook, and kind of one of the first instances of Blade doing these falsettos, which he'll do a lot post the sort of Exeter era. Pretty surprising coming on a song like this, because it is that sort of cross divide which we're going to get very, very soon between the sort of depressing Red Light era to the much more life-affirming tracks, because this is still in that sort of lane of being like the sort of Red Light sound, but he's definitely doing a lot more experimentation with his vocals, so this is a very interesting song for that too, but it's a great track too as well. Red Velvet is next. I wish I liked this song more. I really do. I'm going to put it in the very highest of C. This shows the sort of brotherly camaraderie between Young Lean and Blade, and the constantly, you know, spitting bars and exchanging verses and all sorts, which I particularly liked off Gotham City. But it doesn't really work on here because of the really sparse instrumental. And I guess that just kind of shows how you can describe something and it can be a positive in one instance and then negative in another, because I was praising the sparse instrumentals not too long ago, obviously, with the Exile EP, but it worked there because Blade also matched the flow of the instrumental itself, whereas these two on here are both trying to really sell this sort of grandiose boastfulness, but the instrumental's too sparse for it to fit, so it ends up just coming across, at least to me, a pretty awkward song. And what's also kind of awkward is some of the lyrics, which again some people might especially enjoy. I'm sure this is the song where Young Lean says something like "World War IV got the Twin Towers bustin'." Yeah, just stuff where you're just like, what? So if you like stuff like that, then you might enjoy this song. But for me, it's always been a bit of an awkward number, this one. Trash Star is next, and put this pretty high in A. Now this also is kind of like a boastful song, but is a lot better in my opinion. This is just Blade by himself, and with him talking about trash a lot and him classifying himself as a trash star, this is him basically, you know, praising himself quite a lot. And the instrumental is way more sort of just more dense and just kind of suits the lyrics that he's trying to go for here. And he's actually spitting quite quick on here too, and just is a really, almost, I wouldn't say like a feel-good number, but it almost is too, because it's kind of cool to see Blade feeling himself a bit, you know. So this is definitely a highlight of the sort of Blade era Blade singles that he's released. Next up is a song to put into your playlist when you go into some sort of tropical resort somewhere, in some sort of, you know, all paid exclusive holiday. It is the song All I Want which I think is the first collaboration with Megatalk on production. I don't know why I'm putting up there, I'm putting this shit down here, sorry. It's very squeaky clean in the production, which you expect from Megatalk. And like I say, it has this sort of dance pop kind of sound to it. I don't know what was going on with the way that they've produced Blade's vocals on here. It's really tinny sound, and I don't know why it's like that. I suppose you could say it adds to its sort of futuristic qualities, but nah, it just never sat very well with me, this track. In fact, I'm going to put this a bit lower, actually. It's 4.5 minutes as well. It does go on a fair bit, and I'm just not a fan of this instrumental either. I just find it quite irksome, I'm afraid. It's not one of my favourite songs that Blade's done. But we're going to go on about another collaboration here with Varg. So I was still expecting some sort of feature-length album between Varg and Blade, and I really want that because pretty much everything they've done together has been awesome, especially this song. I'm going to put it up about here. This is a very interesting song. This is pretty experimental sounding. It toes the line between being like an electronic, epic sounding song whilst also still kind of being like hip-hop. And the things that Blade does on here is it's almost indescribable. It's very, again, like I say, quite experimental, and he takes a risk, I'll put it that way, and it works really well. Probably because of the very left field production that Varg does on here too. This is a very interesting song, I'll put it that way, but I really mean that in a good way. It's a very cool sounding track, definitely. Next up, Apple. Apple is an awesome song. I'm putting it in S tier. I love the production on here. It's got a really catchy melody throughout the production, and Blade on here keeps it really simple, to the point, but I like both the lyrics and the flow that he does on here too. It's a very short but sweet song, and it's a real highlight for me. I love this track. Then we've got Famous, which is totally decked out with features. It's got, of course, Blade, it's got Young Lean, it's got King Groceries, it's got Black Cray on it. And I apologise, I can't remember the producer's name on the top of my head, but he's done a lot of sort of Chicago drill sound and stuff in his sort of past discography. And he adds a sort of Chicago bop sound to this track too, which I love that sort of style of hip-hop. So that's going to sit well with me here. Everyone does really well on here, just a sort of braggadocious posse cut. I'd like to put it higher, but it's, for the amount of features on here, it's far too short. I would have liked to have seen them expanded on the abilities to having all of these vocalists on here, and just make it a bit more of a, you know, meatier track, I suppose. Okay, here we go. This is the song that I personally believe is the start of Blade going into the style that everyone hears nowadays. This is Vanilla Sky and features Echo 2K. I'm going to put this about here. One of my favourite Blade songs, obviously. I absolutely adore the instrumental on here. And just when it comes to having songs which just really do feel like you're in heaven, this song absolutely nails that for me. And the fact that hip-hop does that, hip-hop can actually do that, is just awesome. But it's such a feel-good song for me, this. Blade has loads of different sort of melodies on here. The way it just cuts it immediately is just impeccable. And although technically Echo 2K's feature's quite small in here because it just kind of repeats twice, it's such a unique collaboration that he does on here. It's the start of pretty much of his high-pitched singing, and it's got this really quick flow to it, and it's almost kind of electrifying, I would describe it. And the fact that this is a standalone single, do not miss out if you like the sort of cerebral tracks that Blade is starting to do, especially around that sort of 333 sort of era. amazing track there. Just need to quickly point out, guys, apologies that I've missed a song out here. There's a B-side to Vanilla Sky called Birdbath, which I really enjoy too. It's very shimmery and got a very nice sort of spring vibe to the production, and I kind of imagine looking at, you know, an actual bird bath with some beautiful spring water freshly put in, and the sun's, you know, slightly glazing on it, and it's got this nice, wonderful, dazzly sort of look to it. It's very short, the song, but I really like what Bladee does on here. Weirdly, like I say, catchy, and, you know, only a minute or so in length making it. I'd put it around the B tier, but still worth a listen if you're going to try out Vanilla Sky on top of it anyways. So, yeah. Anyways, back to it. This is Let Me Go. This is another track that Bladee has done with the always interesting Cartier God, and we talked about him last time with this track here, and I'm going to put it a step above. He's really honoured his craft of having such a sort of left field sound. This again just really does sound like a Cartier God song, and even though Bladee's feature on here is actually really short, it just really adds to it, and he sits really well. With this, again, he always has this really aquatic sound to it. It's just really weird to describe if you haven't heard it, but, or, you know, the Cartier God songs, but really, really good. Again, sort of that typical breathy vocals that Cartier God kind of does, but fantastic hoogies came up on here too. And the way the full thing is produced, you don't really get anything like that other than going to a Cartier God song or the sort of Reptilian Squad and all that sort of underground hip-hop. But yeah, that's a real highlight there. Here is basically a DJ Nite song called Kilos, which has Bladee on it as well as Cartier God again. I'm going to have to put this in the sort of lower B, which is quite frustrating because what DJ Nite does on here is basically, he should have, I'm afraid, just got rid of Bladee and Cartier God and just kept it a shorter song and just Nebby's him doing another second verse, because I really feel that Bladee and Cartier God don't fit on here very well, and that's because their flow on here is just so much more slower, and it really knocks the wind out of the great sort of tempo that the song's got, because not only is it a really cool chorus that Nate came up with on here, but his verse is really, really quick tempoed, and like I say, it just feels like the life sucked out of the song when it comes to listen to the back end with Bladee, especially Cartier God. I'm sorry, when he says the line, I'm dripping like a pee hole. No, you do not say that. Now here is the track Blue with Sick Boy Rari, aka Black Cray. I'm gonna have to put this at the lower end, I'm afraid. Well, first off, Black Cray on here is fine. Bladee on here would be fine, but his auto-tune is literally off pitch. It's really bad. It's really bad. And the instrumental could have been good too, but it is far too repetitive. Like, the little melody that the instrumental itself has, it's like, must be like 2 seconds long, and it literally just carries out throughout the entire track, which is, by the way, like 3.5 minutes long. And on top of that, there's basically nothing in terms of any vocal delivery for the last like 35 to 40 seconds. So if you got sick of it while the vocals were on, you're definitely going to get sick of it at the tether end of the song too. So I'm afraid there's too many negatives to talk about here, which is why it's definitely on the lower end of this tier list. I'm sorry guys, but we're going to have to kind of stick to talking a bit negatively, because this next track, oh boy. The track Undergone is, yeah, I think this will be the only D tier song for me. Now this is produced by someone called Saliva, I think they're called, who actually ended up working with Young Lean and produced a lot of songs on Stardust, the mixtape that he released not that long ago, and I really, really enjoyed that project. I looked up the songs that he produced, and I love pretty much all the songs that he produced on. But the instrumental sucks on here. Right, first off, it's basically like a, I suppose, ambient pop song. It's mostly just an ambient song with Blade on it, just kind of doing whatever. And it's got these, I suppose they're supposed to be stringed instruments, and they're so cheap sounding. Like, it just sounds like someone's messed on GarageBand for a bit. Like, if you know GarageBand or, you know, stuff like that, you'll know about, if you go into the keyboard, the musical keyboard, and you can do a thing called pitch bending. It just sounds like the guy just pissed about with that for a few minutes and called it a day. Like, it's just so cheap. And Blade on here too, some of the worst vocal delivery he's ever done. And that just makes a really, really bad concoction. And I'm afraid this is, to me, a really bad song. So, no, do not recommend this song whatsoever. Opium Dreams, again, it's not one of my favourites that they've done together. They've done better collabs. I mean, Lean really doesn't even have a verse, he just kind of handles the hook, which is okay-ish. Blade's got really breathy vocals on here, which makes this song sound really tired sounding, and not in a good way to me. White Armor produces on here too. The beat itself is actually okay, but the main sort of synth lead on here is modulated in a way where, again, it just sounds really, again, it's tired sounding, but again, it's hard to describe, but just not enjoyable. I just personally find this song a bit of a, not a chore, but I just would rather listen to way more Blade songs, and as you can see for yourself, I consider a lot of Blade and Youngling collaborations have went a lot more successful previously to this song coming out, so not big on this song, I'm afraid. Now, we're going to get something completely different with C2E, which should stand for Cease to Exist, which I'm sure was the planned name for the project that Blade and Varg were going to, or might still be working on. Very interesting track, I like to say that. I really don't know how to feel about this song because it is so left field. It's not at all a hip-hop song. Blade provides these really interesting falsettos, and the song itself, like I say, isn't really a hip-hop track or anything. It's kind of like, it's almost like a mixture of like industrial music, but also done in a way where it's still got a bit of a heavenly quality to it. It's more like a sort of experience, I'd describe it as. There's nothing really catchy towards it, but at the same time I can't put it down because it's got this vibe which is sometimes breathtaking when you're listening to it. So it isn't so much a song so much as where you get your typical chorus verse and stuff like that, but I would say the song's definitely an experience, like, so props to that song, definitely. But this next one is actually going to be another song, as you can see here, Cease to Exist. It's another one with both Blade and Varg. This one's called Shinie, I believe. This is going to sit here. This, I believe, is an amazing track. Now, this also still has an electronic element, but it's way more hip-hop based. And props to Blade, because even though it's just kind of like one huge verse and then just the chorus sang a load of times at the back end, that first verse is so catchy. It's awesome. It's like really, really energetic, and it just really feels like you're just kind of zipping through some sort of bullet train, going hundreds of miles an hour. It's an epic track. And props to Varg too, because it's so punchy and awesome sound in the instrumental. And Blade, again, like I say, has this really catchy chorus that he does throughout the sort of second half, which is sort of pitched up later on as well. And the sort of skippy beat that's used as well just makes this like a really peppy and cool and, just like I say, a fun song as well. I would definitely say it's just fun. So yeah, awesome track. This is not that old, this song either, obviously, because we're pretty much done. So check this song out. I say it's pretty underrated. Okay. God. Last but yeah, least is Amygdala. The last sort of non-project single that Bladee has so far released, featuring Echo 2K. Oh man. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put it in the D tier. I'm really sorry. I cannot stand this song. I really can't, and I appreciate it has its fans. There are a lot of fans who like this. I've seen a lot of people say this is some of both Bladee and Echo 2K's best work. I don't see it. I really don't see it. This features Megatalk on production, making another sort of clean dance pop sounding track. And it's trying to go for this sort of feel good, carefree vibe. I find it really annoys me. It just really, I don't know how to describe it. Right, first off, Echo 2K on here, his falsettos and his, it's annoying. Just like I say, it just really feels like they've just taken, not drugs, but just they've just ate too much sugar and it's trying to be too happy. Does that sound bad? Saying that I'm moaning about a Bladee song being too happy. I'm really not. I'm a mostly happy person, but this song just takes it way too far, and it's like headache inducing for me, this song. And especially, it just really sounds like they're trying too hard to be commercial to me. It really does. Especially Megatalk in the production. I'm not going to keep putting them down, because even though I didn't love Good Luck, there was good songs on there. But that sort of like synth bass he does throughout, it's just so derivative and boring. And again, Bladee, it's like whatever, just reciting the same sort of things, dreaming in a dream and blah blah blah. It's just really, like I say, it's just a concoction that I just can't stand. I really dislike this song. I'm sorry to end it on a negative, I really am. But this just, as I like to say, this song is not for me. It's not my cup of tea. So, I'm sorry to end it on a low note. But hey, you know what, like I say, that's just the one song. You can see for yourself. I've got a great number of songs that I consider stellar tracks from Bladee. And company, of course. And I hope this kind of shows you that not only, you know, I have my opinions, of course, but these opinions show that I personally believe that if you were to just stick around listening to the albums that Bladee's done or the mixtapes, you are missing out on a great handful of awesome tracks. So we'll just end it there, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I say, please let me know if there's songs that you've ended up discovering because of this video and that you'll enjoy, hopefully. Let me know if there's any opinions that I've said here that you majorly disagree on. Vice versa, in regards to I've put something too high in your opinion or too low. And like I say, feel free to use this template, and if you would like to make your own list, then by all means go ahead. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you guys very shortly. Bye for now.